Hi, everyone. We're live. I'm Ariel Ellis, author of The Original Millennial, a thought leadership series featuring the stories of millennials who are leaders in business and community. As many of you probably know, there's a lot that's being said about millennials, a lot about us being lazy and slackers and entitled and narcissists, etc., but not a lot being said about our innovation, our leadership, our focus and our accomplishments and all the great things that we're doing, not only in the workplace, but in the community. I'm really, really excited to bring to you a variety of different pieces of content around this topic, specifically the book, as well as video and podcast interviews. So you're tuned in here now to get another interview from one of the original millennials who will be featured in this series. I'm so excited to just meet a variety of different millennials across the country. It's been a really, really interesting process in not only researching what has been being said about millennials, but also just more than anything, getting to know the amazing people from this generation who are doing such interesting and creative and profound work in their community. So today, I have Jahan Spearman. She is an attorney millennial with her own career advice blog who works in corporate America, specifically a financial institution. She has a 9 to 5, but she also has a startup where she works from 6 to midnight. She is on an advisory board of a women's rights nonprofit group called Equal Rights Advocates, and devotes a substantial amount of time to volunteering and working in her community. She's born from an immigrant mother, and her father just was deceased at a very young age, but she's accomplished a lot, overcome a lot, many odds, and is featured here today. Hello there.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I really appreciate the work that you're doing specifically in women's rights, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, as well as the work that you've been doing with your career, of course, your full-time job, but then also the startup that you're working with as well. It's going to be, I think, an interesting discussion to be able to share with many millennials and others who are doing some of the same things. But I think is very, very encouraging to hear those stories. So why don't you just start out telling us what got you where you are?
Um, I, I think if I had to define the primary building blocks that got me to where I am today, it would have to be this thing that a coach told me many years ago, which is a fire in the belly. And it's this passion for working really, really hard to achieve goals. And I think that's one of the things that is difficult to teach other people who don't have necessarily, right? And it's like just this desire and this passion to do really, really well and to work hard. And I think that unlike the stereotype of many millennials, a lot of us are working incredibly hard around the clock with a ton of different careers to make things happen. So I think that's sort of one of the building blocks that I would say I have that I'm not sure is a trait across millennials that may make me more original in that respect.
That's interesting that you said that. Talk a little bit more about your chosen career path. It seems as if a lot of us original millennials have a variety of different layers. So talk about your chosen career path and why you went the direction that you went.
Yeah, I think as a young child, I always wanted to be an attorney. And I always joked that I used to watch 90210 when I was young, and I thought the families that had all the attorney dads seemed to be pretty well off. And I kind of wanted that. I grew up with a lot of financial struggles. So I remember sort of that being kind of an outlandish dream. And one of the things that feels so empowering about being an attorney is that you get to understand the laws and you can defend yourself and you can represent yourself and you don't get pushed around a lot. And I think growing up in a family where you have an immigrant mother who's my primary caretaker, she's not used to a lot of the things that are going on in this country. She doesn't quite understand the systems and the processes. So frequently there was no one to really advocate for our family. And so from a very young age, I wanted to kind of have that power to be able to say, if things are being done to my family and they are wrong, I want to be able to speak up. And I think becoming an attorney was one of the best ways to do that. And I think that was sort of the root of my interest in becoming an attorney.
That's really interesting that you use those personal experiences to inspire you. I think many times, especially as we've seen in Gen X as well as the baby boomer generation, sometimes pattern wise and historically, a lot of times their work choices or their career choices don't always come from a place of inspiration. And it's really interesting that we've seen that with original millennials more than any specific demographic. Talk a little bit more about that. I like that you use those experiences to inspire and influence your chosen career path. Talk a little bit more about what that may have been like, and especially with immigration being such a huge topic right now.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're kind of in the twilight zone sometimes?
Well, one of the things that I think is so interesting about my career right now is that it's sort of one of these slash careers, and it's not a term that I developed myself, but it's really a term used when someone, for example, has a resume and they have one job slash another job, right? So we've created this term. It's called slash careers, and I think many millennials actually partake in. It's one of the things that I have, and the reason that I wanted to talk about that is that I think in some respects it can be difficult to have financial security and to feel fulfilled within the same career, right? So we're constantly looking to see how we can be most fulfilled, and the millennial generation, myself included, is riddled with a ton of student loan debt and incredibly high interest rates. And so financial security is something that's very important to me, and that's something that I want to make sure I stay on top of my finances, and I'm really smart about the decisions that I make, and I'm paying my debt down aggressively. And so working in a really large multinational financial institution enables me to take care of those financial responsibilities. It's a bonus that I actually really enjoy my job at this financial institution, but one of the things that has inspired me to continuously volunteer is my childhood. And in my childhood, I had several mentors that took me aside and said, you can become an attorney, you can go to college. And when you have people here and there whispering that in your ear and helping you with college applications, in hindsight, you look back and you say, that was one of the reasons that I got to where I am today, which was mentorship. And that is just so near and dear to my heart. And so while I love my current job and I'm able to manage my finances really well with my current job, it didn't give me the opportunity to reach out and to mentor other people who may be in similarly situated experiences. And that's why I started a lot of the work I did with my career advice blog. My career advice blog is called spearcareer.com. And I noticed that a lot of young college girls were looking at fashion blogs, and they were spending a lot of their time doing that. And then if you look at the way that a traditional career advice blog is set up, it's set up where it's very lengthy and kind of boring. There's not a lot of original content. So I kind of wanted to meld the two different styles. So it's daily, it's original content, it's really fresh and exciting, but it gives me an opportunity to share what I know with people who may not know exactly how to prepare for an interview, how to get dressed up, what does casual Friday mean? And so I explore a wide variety of career topics, and it's really geared towards college-age girls. And that's one of the ways that I'm able to kind of reach back out and to mentor. And it's the same story for being on the board for Equal Rights Advocates, which is a women's rights law firm. Those are opportunities, kind of slashes in my career, other opportunities for me to feel fulfilled and give back, while also maintaining a job that gives me financial security and helps me like sort of build my resume.
That's interesting that you said, we have slash careers. And you're right. I have about 4 slashes in my title
Yeah.
that I do. Talk a little bit more about, once you got into that role, or once you decided you wanted to be an attorney, talk about how you added those extra slashes at the end. What led you to do that? And one of the things you said was that, one of the main reasons why you did it is because you wanted to make sure that you were financially stable and you wanted to kind of fulfill that passion. But what was your path to continuously adding those slashes, and is there any point where you think you will stop adding any, or, what point may you get to where you would feel satisfied and gratified?
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that somebody with my personality type can struggle with, because I don't go to bed at the end of the day thinking I have done enough and I have made a big enough impact. And I think one of the things that's so wonderful about how I'm able to achieve success at such a young age is that I think that a lot of very grandiose ideas are achievable, right? Which may seem a little bit silly to many people, but because I think they're achievable and I think a lot of my ideas are worthwhile, I end up spreading myself pretty thin by continuously adding on different careers. And adding on the blog and being on the board are two things that I did because I just think that volunteering and giving back and reaching back out are just so important and are immensely valuable. And it's something that has helped me. And I just can't imagine my life without spending the amount of hours that I do volunteering. So I had my original job for financial security. I do a lot of volunteering for fulfilling work. And I think doing consulting startups was something that kind of happened organically. I live in a really large city. I'm in San Francisco. I'm in the middle of this crazy tech boom. And I happen to work at this financial institution in the technology group. And so I know a lot about the laws relating to doing business over mobile devices. And so if you look at a lot of the startups that are coming down, these are mobile apps. And when you have these mobile apps coming down right and left, a lot of people need guidance on how to incorporate, how to write terms and conditions and privacy policies. And I knew that information. So through just sort of organic networking, people would reach out asking for my help. And I have a really hard time saying no, because I think that these apps are worthwhile. And I think that they're, the goals that people are trying to set out with these apps are achievable. And with those sort of two thoughts being on the forefront of my mind, I continuously want to get these things done and work really hard to do it. And I think there will become a time, if I decide to have children, that I will probably need to slow down and to consider the amount of work that I'm doing. But right now, when it's just myself and my fiance, and we both work really hard and enjoy that, that's sort of something that that I can continue to do for the time being.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it's interesting that that is definitely a pattern with the original millennials, or the millennials who I would term for this project to be original, if you will. The slashes, I think that is so key. Consistently having a variety of different things that we continue to add to our portfolio and to our name and who we are. Tell me a little bit more about the board work that you do. One of the key things that we've seen with original millennials is that we're at the helm of, social entrepreneurship. We are merging profit and purpose. Tell me how, either with your startup or either with the work that you do with the boards that you've been on, how you are merging profit and purpose.
Yeah. So this is actually very interesting. A lot of the skills that I've learned in my current job at the financial institution, a lot of things around marketing and social media, are things that are directly applicable to the work that So I volunteer for this women's rights law firm. It's called Equal Rights Advocates. It's based in San Francisco, but they will bring a lawsuit anywhere in the nation, and they are an incredibly small but mighty team. It's one of those nonprofits that pinches pennies and can do a ton of work with the very small amount of money that they operate with each year. And so I was inspired by how hard they worked, and I thought, I have skills in this for-profit job that I'm working that can help this nonprofit job. And one of the things that attracted me to this nonprofit was some of the statistics that they handed out at one of their annual luncheons. And they were saying that women are 50% of the population. We make up about 47% of the workforce. And we make up about 5% of board positions and about 15% of C-suite professions. And if you see that dramatic drop off, you have to think to myself, and I constantly think to myself, is my career limited as I go higher and higher up the corporate ladder? Where will I be able to make my next move? Will I be able to run an entire company? I want to be the chief compliance officer, but when I see that my chances are so limited, I begin to get nervous about that. And so in a way, it's kind of selfish, but it's also very important, I think, for the generations coming up behind me, and especially for young women, that they should understand that they make up 50% of the population, and they can also and should also make up 50% of board positions and C-suite professional roles. And so you see that dramatic drop off. And you have to ask yourself why. And there are actually a lot of contributing factors to that. We tend to take on a large majority of child rearing. And because of that, we need jobs that are very flexible so that we can pick up kids after school. And so we're less likely to go after these higher paying jobs, which may at the outset seem more demanding. But then as you look at it, you start to realize that all of these things are very achievable, even with children. And so it was really my curiosity and my selfishness in wanting to succeed that kind of drove me towards volunteering for a law firm that's doing work that directly helps women get into these higher positions in companies. And they do a lot of other work around workplace violence, wage and hours. And so I took the skills that I had in this for-profit job and essentially brought that to a nonprofit sector because it was very needed, and I thought it was worthwhile what they were doing, and still do. Now that I've kind of, I'm on the board, I see how this nonprofit works on the back end. I couldn't be more impressed with what they do with the limited resources that they have.
Yeah, it's interesting that what you said about being able to bring those resources to the board or to this other organization, and it ties directly into the question that I asked about merging profit and purpose. One of the great things about Original Millennials, as I said, is that we're leading the charge in that. And the increase in being able to, as I said earlier when I was introducing you, the increase in us being able to be entrepreneurial and intrapreneurial. So, doing our own things, but still showing a lot of leadership capabilities in our full-time jobs, but then also in the nonprofits that we serve, and being able to utilize those skills and make them purposeful. And that's something that it seems that we are really, really focused on. What has perhaps been the biggest thing that has inspired the work that you do?
I think that my upbringing, realizing that I can overcome adversity, has inspired me to take a deeper look at why that may happen. Why do some children who grow up in more difficult environments succeed and others fail? And why do some children who grow up in phenomenal environments fail? And I've been really curious about that, and I try to pinpoint what those pieces are. And I think there's sort of a few pillars of that. And one is definitely education. And I grew up in a family that didn't have much. We had a lot of financial stress, but education was stress, right? This is your golden ticket out. And I believed that, and it has actually helped me. Like I mentioned earlier, I think mentorship was another pillar. And it's interesting now that we have this debate, right, with younger generations, even after the millennials come, we're having this debate about the benefit of education and how technology has drastically changed so much that we don't necessarily need to teach kids things that they can look up. We need to help kids understand how they can be critical thinkers. And there's a lot of debate, especially in higher tech environments, around the benefits of college, for example. And we have kids who are coming out of college with liberal arts degrees, riddled with student debt at incredibly high interest rates, who are having difficulty finding work. And we can put those same kids, even inner city kids, in programs and learn how to code and make six-figure salaries without debt, and we can do it in a shorter period of time. So I am noticing that there's definitely been a big shift from the value of education to the value of critical thinking in your ideas. And so while education has been a pillar for me, I understand that value system may have shifted slightly even in the time that I've been alive. And one of the other things, I think the third pillar that has really kind of inspired me, and it comes from my athletic background in sports. And for me, sports was like this microcosm of real life. And you win some, right? And you can celebrate that and you feel excited and you can pat yourself on the back, and you lose some, in which case you have to learn how to stay determined, to push yourself harder than you thought that you could. And to have a phenomenal like time management and teamwork, for example. There's not, I've never been on a team where I've liked every single person, but can you get along with them to succeed as a whole? And if you take those skills from athleticism and team sports in particular, but all athletes, and you translate that into business, you can see how easily that can inspire you, because so many of the skills that you learn in sports are transferable. And so I would say those three pillars have probably been the most inspiring to me. And athletics has played a huge, huge role in just discipline and really understanding myself and working well with others.
That's interesting. And even if one of my questions was, what part of culture has inspired you most? And I think I just heard that more than one. I think I just heard your key three things culturally that have inspired you the most.
Yeah, definitely athletics. I can't stress it enough. And it doesn't really necessarily even need to be sports, but finding something that children are really excited about and then making sure that they're enveloped in this world where they can explore that is kind of a safe space. Because if you think about it, if you lose a sports game, it doesn't really matter to your life, right? It may have some emotional effects on you, but how much do you learn about picking yourself back up, about what it means to not finish first? And so that's a safe space to explore a ton of different things that actually come up in real life, right? So when you lose a family member in real life, right, that has an actual attributable effect on people. And so can you pick yourself back up? Can you be resilient? And you learn those things in these smaller sort of microcosm activities, whether it's ballet and so I can't stress enough that I think one of the keys to success for children is being able to have an environment where they can explore those different things.
That's important. What do you think are some of the key things, or if there's one thing that you have experienced as an original millennial that has been your biggest challenge? Has there been anything just based on you being in this generation that has been your biggest challenge, and just even in your career or as a full-time employee in your workspace, or even in the work that you do outside of your full-time job?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge being a millennial, especially because I'm in such a conservative, sort of highly regulated, bureaucratic corporate environment for my work, is gaining respect of people who have an older school mentality, and that mentality may be experience matters most. And as you can see, especially in the Silicon Valley and in San Francisco, it's really ideas that matter most. And people are continuously rewarded for coming up with new and innovative ideas. And I think it doesn't help that I'm racially ambiguous, that I'm a woman, and that I am young, right? So I constantly need to outperform others to prove my worth and to gain respect. And that can be tiring at times, but that seems to be the only way that I can bridge the gap between people who have an older school mentality that if you haven't been at the company for 15 years, you don't know what you're doing. And it's really hard to convince people that I've actually made the job that I was hired to do more efficient. I've come up with innovative ways to avoid risk, to mitigate loss, to improve controls across a compliance department. If you look at the ideas that I've come up with, they rival a lot of the people who have been at the company for a long time. But gaining respect from those people who think that experience is the only thing that matters has been, and still is, one of the challenges that I face on a daily basis. And it's incredibly humbling at times, and infuriating and frustrating when you think that you can make something better, but you are not sure you're being given the chance simply because of your age. I go out of my way to keep my age private. I dress incredibly professional at all times. I avoid interacting with people in sort of a more social setting who may, think that I am, less respectable or younger, or I really try to keep my work incredibly professional to avoid some of those challenges and pitfalls. But that's something that I continue to face. And I think over time, people are I think people are understanding that millennials have a lot to offer, and that you will get lost as a business if you are not attracting millennials and if you are not marketing towards us as well. So we are a key player, but I think it takes a lot of time for people to kind of catch up to that idea.
I agree with you. Why do you think that, and that's why I believe that empowerment is so important amongst us, for us to empower each other and provide resources and support and encouragement to each other, either in the workplace or in our communities, to be able to start that business or to be able to know how to navigate different career issues and situations. And I mean, you tell me, why do you think empowerment is important amongst millennials?
I think, empowerment to me is this idea that you can develop someone's potential, and that somebody has the capacity to be in control of their own lives. And it's very similar to that quote, hand someone a fish or versus teaching them to fish, right? And we want to create this environment, especially as millennials will become the majority of the working force very soon. We want to create this environment where millennials have the opportunity to explore jobs and careers that are very meaningful to them, and then can actually make a living doing those sorts of things. And I think without that, we're going to see a different world. And in some respects, we already see that with inequality in education, and with lower education echelons being of less quality, for example, and inner city public schools and versus private schools. And you start to see this huge divide, right? And when people can't reach their potential, they lash out in other ways. Their voice isn't heard. And so maybe that means that they need to make their voice heard through violence or through graffiti, or there are a lot of social aspects that stem from people's inability to have control over their own lives and to develop their potential, whatever that may be. So if you have a kid that's incredibly skilled at art, and we haven't given that kid an opportunity to understand digital design, that kid doesn't go on to be the head digital designer of Nike and able to support themselves and contribute to society. Instead, that kid becomes incredibly frustrated because that kid has to work a retail job now to make ends meet and to figure out life without any sort of mentorship or tutoring. And so I think that empowering people really means teaching them how to do it for themselves, teaching somebody how to fish for themselves. And once we can create that, I think we have this society that's really thriving. And I think that has a direct impact on poverty and violence, and maybe a larger impact on war, right? And so if you can teach someone how to take care of themselves, then no one else needs to do that for them. That's going to be really big, I think, in the next coming years.
I think so too. The shift is happening, and it's happening faster than we think. The stats that I use for the book are that 75% of the workforce will be made up of the, not just the workforce, but leaders in the workforce will be millennials by the year 2025. And now we're seeing the workforce itself will be 75% made up of millennials by 2020. That's just 5 years from now. So, and add another 5 years to that, we'll be in leadership. So, I mean, thinking of that and realizing, like you said, being able to have those resources because someone chose to empower someone else. I know, and just like you said earlier about mentors and different people and different opportunities, there's no way that I could have, been able to accomplish the things that I have without a group of people or certain moments or certain opportunities to receive empowerment. So those things have been very, very important to me. And it sounds like it's been very pivotal for you too, not just for you to be able to get where you are, but for you to be able to feel that you are really fulfilled and being able to give that to others. And I think that is what truly, truly encompasses the idea or the theme of the original millennial is that we're working and we're working very, very hard, but we're not just working very hard for ourselves. We're working for our communities and for the next generations behind us, and even those currently in our age group to kind of, to bring them up to a certain level to where they also feel empowered and can go empower others as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think that hard work looks differently, and I think older generations sometimes will say maybe we don't work that hard, but having flexible hours, being able to work from home, getting things done faster because you have technology, being able to hire a house cleaner through a phone app, get to work through a phone app, get a meal delivered through a phone app. Maybe our hard work looks different, but I guarantee that I am in a clan of a large number of people who are really, really busting their butts, doing a ton of things, giving back to the community. And I hope that gets recognized.
I think so too. And I mean, I'm definitely working to recognize it through this series. And I'm super glad that you were a part of it. We're running out of time, but this has been like a great conversation. And I'm so glad you were one of the people that I got a chance to interview. Last question.
Yeah.
Actually, no, two more questions.
Okay.
What do you think makes you an original millennial?
Um, you know, so I'm in a millennial not just because of the years that I was born. I'm a millennial because I use technology to make life easier for myself. I am this weird mix of races and religions and cultural experiences, and I have not experienced a world war, so maybe I'm a little bit more open to other groups of people not being a threat. And so in that respect, I'm an original millennial because I think we are reaching outside of our traditional roles, outside of our races and religions and different cultures, and we're trying to sort of mend bridges, right? And I think I'm an original millennial because I'm questioning a lot of traditions that maybe don't work for me or that seem impractical, like marriage. This is the first time in history that, the number of unmarried people outweighs married people. I'm questioning kids. I'm riddled in debt, so a home purchase may be something that would have to wait a longer period of time. And I think my entire generation is facing those experiences. And I grew up on TV, which I think many of us did. So our revolution is going to be on social media. We may not head to the streets. And in that respect, I feel a ton of camaraderie for all the people that are born around the years I was born.
I love it. Camaraderie. You talked about TV and social media. What song do you think defines you as an original millennial?
Okay. I'm going to go with Notorious B.I.G. Juicy. And I went with that song. Even though I was born in Oakland, California, so I probably should have chosen something more Tupac-ish. I went with that song because the chorus, I think, speaks volumes to how millennials view themselves. And it says, you know very well who you are. You don't let them hold you down. Reach for the stars. And I think millennials spend a lot of time investigating, exploring who they are authentically. What gender do I want to date? What gender am I? What type of life do I want to live? Right? We're kind of breaking out of these molds of tradition. And in that respect, I think that represents a lot of millennials. And I love how the song starts. It's dedicated to the teachers who told him he would never amount to anything, right? So it goes back to this debate about education, but it also goes back to this idea that we don't necessarily get to the end point the way that our parents did. We aren't sitting in companies for 20 years expecting this incredibly loyal, paycheck at the end of our career. And we're kind of moving around and we're exploring. And Biggie in this song also talks about stereotypes of a Black male. He's very misunderstood. And I think a lot of millennials feel very misunderstood. We're told we're arrogant and we're selfish and we don't give back. And so I think breaking the mold of these stereotypes is another reason that song resonates really well with, I think, this original millennial project. And then also, and I have to mention it because it's true, I think being really generous and enjoying life. In this song, Biggie's in limousines. His mom has mink, and he is drinking champagne. And millennials really do. We're foodies. We want to get our foot massage, and we really enjoy life. And so we know we're here for a very short period of time, and we want to have some fun too. So that's the song I'm choosing. Although very difficult decision, but the catchy beat. Everyone knows.
Yeah. You can't deny it, right? It's definitely a legendary hip hop classic.
Yeah.
Wow, I love it. We're friends already. I love that you chose that song. Thank you so much for participating. We're just about out of time. Anything else you want to share, just in general, about our generation, about our work, about our passion?
No, it's interesting. If I sit down at a group with friends for lunch, I have a girl next to me who just got back from Germany playing professional volleyball. I have a woman who's making video games, and another friend of mine who's a woman who travels to Thailand to deliver checks to orphanages. And it's like, we're doing a lot of really big things, and the world is going to continuously look different. And I think we're up for the challenge of constantly reinventing ourselves and what we need to do to make this a better, enjoyable place.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for participating. This was awesome. Excellent interview, excellent chat. I look forward to supporting your projects, and look forward to sharing more of your story with those who will be reading the book, and with those who may be watching the video or following the website. Definitely go to the website, everybody, theoriginalmillennial.com. And there'll be more content about Jahan, as well as many other original millennials, but the majority of the content will be in the book. You can actually go pre-order that book now at theoriginalmillennial.com. By the time you see this video, the book could potentially already be out. So definitely go to the website, sign up to get the email updates, and definitely go ahead and purchase the content, and go to the website to find out more about Jahan's story. Thank you, everybody, for watching.